All right. Hello, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Sarah Lyons, and I'll be guiding us through this webinar today. Welcome to the Efficient Fertilizer Consortium 2026 Request for Applications. This webinar is just an informational webinar all about this funding opportunity, so hopefully we can help answer some of your questions. And this will be recorded and put on the RFA webpage afterwards, so you all can reference it after the fact if needed. Just a quick overview of the agenda today. We'll have a brief introduction to FAR and the Efficient Fertilizer Consortium. I'll introduce the FAR team, which are our panelists here today. And then I'll walk through the requirements and overview of this funding opportunity. Then I'll also briefly talk about the field trial guidelines for evaluating enhanced efficiency fertilizers. And then at the end, we'll have some time to answer your questions. Some housekeeping. So if you have questions at any point during the webinar, please feel free to put them in the Q&A function in Zoom, and my teammates will help answer them throughout the webinar. So feel free to put questions in as we go. So here is the FAR team on the Efficient Fertilizer Consortium. Again, I'm Sarah Lyons. I'm the main point of contact for this program, so feel free to reach out to me with any questions directly after the webinar. Two other members of our science team that are here today are Allison Thompson, our Scientific Program Director, and then Olivia Shoemaker, our Scientific Program Associate. And then we also have a wonderful member from our grants team here helping to answer some questions, Rachel Thompson. And then two other members of the team are Sarah Zubek, our Director of Strategic Partnerships, as well as Colleen Daniel, our Communications Lead. So thanks so much for being here, teammates, to help answer questions as we go. Okay, so just quickly wanted to give a little bit of information about FAR. We were established in the 2014 Farm Bill by Congress in the United States. And our bread and butter is really connecting funders, researchers, and farmers to pioneer the next frontier of ag research. So we really specialize in public-private partnerships to fund research answering the most important questions in agriculture and food. The Efficient Fertilizer Consortium is housed in one of our priority areas, so it's in the Sustaining Vibrant Agroecosystems priority area. And the focus of this area is deepening our understanding of how agriculture systems and practices interact with the surrounding environment. So we really want to help farmers optimize their resource use and enhance productivity and also increase efficiency, which is what we're all about in this program. The Efficient Fertilizer Consortium is really special. It's inherently international, which is a little bit different than some of our other FAR programming. The overall goal is to increase fertilizer efficiency, accelerate efficient fertilizer products and practices, to alleviate pressure on both food and fertilizer supply, as well as prevent nutrient loss and keeping nutrients in the soil and ready to go for the crops that they were intended for. This consortium would not be possible without our wonderful members. So this does represent another public-private partnership. We have a really great diversity of stakeholders who are providing funding for this opportunity. We have two other governments who have joined. So we have Agriculture, Agri-Food Canada, as well as two ministries of Israel. We have two commodity groups, United Soybean Board and Cotton Incorporated. We have four fertilizer companies, ICL, Azotic Technologies, Pivot Bio, and OCP, and two other foundations, Novo Nordisk Foundation and the Platform for Agriculture and Climate Transformation. And for the whole program, we had just over $10 million to fund research under this space. And for this opportunity in particular, all of the funds will be coming from our members. So really grateful for them and their commitment to this important work. Okay, so now we will move into the specific details for this funding opportunity. So this is the webpage. So if you're on the webinar, you probably visited this webpage. It was in the press release as well as the newsletter details. So this webpage has everything you need to know about the opportunity. However, I did want to direct you to the RFA PDF, which has all the details about this opportunity. So please download this PDF and reference it as you're putting together an application. And if you come up with a question, chances are the answer will be in that PDF. So if you scroll down on the web page just a bit, there are a couple links to the PDF on the web page. Here are two of them. So one is in the introduction and one is in the key dates and information section. So if you just click on that link, it'll bring you to this lovely RFA PDF, which has every detail you need to know about applying for FAR funding and about this specific opportunity. And if you've reached out to us asking a question, chances are we've just relayed the same information that's in this PDF. So please make sure you reference this if you come up with any questions. Okay, so overview of the RFA. This opportunity is open to both domestic, so if you're in the US, great, or international. So the research does not have to take place in the US. It can happen in any of the regions that we're interested in that are listed in the RFA. And for this opportunity, up to 500 US dollars can be requested for each proposal. The total budget can exceed this. So if you're bringing in additional match, that's amazing. Additional match is optional. However, if you can bring additional match, it allows you to do even more with your work. Obviously, we'd love to see that. So again, match is optional, but desire, it'd be great if you can get it. The projects, sorry, let me just minimize my thing so I can see the screen. Okay, so the projects in this opportunity must consist of hypothesis-driven research. So we will be looking for a clearly defined research hypothesis in each proposal. So please make sure you clearly note that. These are the topic areas that we're targeting with this opportunity. So the first one is the impact of stacking EEFs with field management and 4R nutrient stewardship practices. So we're not just looking at testing products to see if they work. We want to know how they work in a field management context. So tillage, cover crops, irrigation, drainage, things of that nature. We want to know how these products perform in a real life scenario to help farmer decision making. Second, we're also interested in nutrient carryover effects from EEFs and crop rotations. This could include rotations that have legumes. So we want to know not only what's happening in the current growing season, but how is it affecting future growing seasons. Third, we want to know what products work best to support crop nutrition yield and efficiency in specific climates, soils, and cropping systems. So many of you probably are aware that the research that's been done on some of these products is limited to certain locations. We want to know if it would work in locations that it hasn't been evaluated in before. Fourth, we also are just interested in agronomic and environmental trade-offs resulting from implementing these products and practices. So, for example, some may help reduce nitrous oxide emissions, but they could increase nitrate leaching, for example. So we want to know what those trade-offs are and how to mitigate those. And then lastly, we're also very interested in the impact of these products on soil microbial communities and function, so how it kind of interacts with the soil environment. Okay, so the last slide was topics, general research areas. These are the specific parameters we're looking at. So we are targeting specific geographic locations for this opportunity. So specifically, anywhere in South America, anywhere in Central America, Western North America, so US, Canada. And then in addition, any location in the world that is arid with irrigation. So we are interested specifically in irrigated arid locations. And just to clarify, South America, Western North America, Central doesn't have to be arid or irrigated. So those three regions plus arid and irrigated regions anywhere. For nutrients of interest, we're looking at nitrogen and or phosphorus. Of course, there could be other nutrients of interest there, but we're specifically targeting nitrogen and phosphorus. Crop rotations, we are also focused on corn systems. Corn systems tend to be the ones that have the most emissions and nutrient losses because they have very high fertilizer requirements. So that's kind of why we're targeting corn systems, but we are interested in corn that's rotated with other row crops. So in particular, soybean, wheat, or cotton, but other row crops can, of course, be included in rotation with that corn. And then cover crops can be included as a management practice, where we would be glad to see that. And then we are also targeting specific categories of enhanced efficiency fertilizers. So specifically enzyme inhibitors, controlled and slow release fertilizers, as well as biofertilizers. We have definitions of each of these in the RFA PDF, but we are really focused on products that are bringing nitrogen or phosphorus or both to the crop. And also have some evidence that they increase nutrient use efficiency or reduce nutrient losses. And then lastly, in terms of measurements, these are also, we're funding field work. We're not funding greenhouse or lab studies. So this is field work. You must measure some measurement of agronomic performance. So yield, biomass, some way of the crop, responding to those management practices. Second, we are requiring some measure of nutrient use efficiency or nutrient recovery. There's a lot of different ways you can calculate that. We have a reference in the RFA PDF that'll take you to some examples, up to the researcher which one you use, but we must have some measurement of that. And then optional, but desired is some environmental measurement, and the environmental measurement should be appropriate to the loss pathway that EEF is addressing. But this could include nitrous oxide emissions, ammonia volatilization, leaching, or runoff. So again, not required. We understand that's not possible from every project, but we would really like to see environmental measurements. Here's a list of research areas not supported. I'm not going to walk through these, but again, these are all in the RFA PDF, just to help you understand, what we're not interested in seeing from some of these projects. And then pre-application required components. So this is when you're getting ready to submit your application. This is the details you need to include. There is also information about the full application in the PDF. You do not need to worry about that right now. You only need to worry about the pre-application step. So we want your organization contact information. We want your research team contact information. And then for budget, all we need to know is the total funding amount you're requesting from FAR, and then the total proposed budget. So that includes your FAR request as well as any additional external match. If you are providing match, we want to know who is providing the match, and then if that match is secured or still under discussion. And then for your application information, we want to know the project title, the key words, the project duration. We are funding from projects from 2 to 3 years. The geographic location, so this is where the actual field work will be taking place, as well as the project abstract and the project description. So the project description, this is really the meat of your application, where you're explaining what you'll be doing in the project. So we want to know what challenge you're addressing. We also want you to include justification for the field trial location, cropping system, and EEF products to be studied. So what we're really looking for there is, for the field trial location, do you expect a response to fertilizer? Is it nitrogen or phosphorus limiting? The cropping system, we want it to be appropriate for the location and the farming community of interest. And then the products, we want to make sure the mode of action of the product lines up with that climate and that cropping system. Second, very clearly stated underlying research hypothesis. We will be looking for this. And then third, how will the project will adjust the challenge? So this is really describing what you're going to do in the research. And we want you to include research strategy, methodology, and how you will comply with the field trial guidelines. And then lastly, we just want to know why this program is ideally positioned to fund your project. Okay, so just quickly, I wanted to walk through briefly the field trial guidelines because all EFC funded projects must comply with these guidelines. They are published open access in the Soil Science Society of America Journal. A link to it is also on the EFC website and on the RFA website. The layout is basically a series of tables that has both required and recommended information. So the required information is required. You have to collect this information and report it in either your published journal article or the data set to have meaningful results. The recommended information is desired, but it might be dependent on location, the system, the objectives, or simply just cost and availability limitations. So we really tried to put this together in a flexible enough way so anyone could comply with them. So we set it up in a tiered framework. So as you go out the circle, things become a little bit more tailored to the system or the research project. At the core is your experimental design and core metadata, really essential to get these things right so that your project has impact. As you go out, you get to crop and soil analysis. So again, obviously you need this information for this type of work, but this will become a little bit more tailored to the cropping system you're looking at. And then at the last tier, environmental losses. So again, this is optional, but we would love to see some measure of environmental losses. There's 3 tables in this section. It's water, nitrous oxide, and ammonia volatilization. And then across all of the layers, we want to see proper data stewardship. So here's an example table. Again, not going to walk through it, but just to give you an idea of what they look like. This is the experimental design table. It's the first table, and it has general information about your trial. It has treatment, enhanced efficiency fertilizer information, experimental controls, treatment rates, and replications and blocks. This is the last table, data stewardship. I did just want to point out that we require it in the paper. We also require it as part of the EFC that all data sets are published. So they can either be submitted to a public data repository or as a data publication. And we do include guidelines for how to select a repository here in the table. But just be aware that we are requiring the data sets to be published. And then lastly, here are just some helpful resources and links and important dates. Contact information, again, for any science-related questions, you can email me. And then if you're applying and have questions about our application system, our grants team will be happy to help. And then here are just some links related to this opportunity. On the right is our key dates and information. So the next date you all need to know about is March 18th is the pre-application deadline. And then again, there's a link here to download the RFA PDF. Please make sure you do that. It looks like this. It has everything you need to know. And I think that's it. Yes, I will stop sharing.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lyons, for that comprehensive overview of this 2026 RFA coming out of the Efficient Fertilizer Consortium. And thank you to all of our attendees today for being active in the chat and in the Q&A box. We're going to dedicate this time now to working through some of those questions. So I'll be moderating to our science contacts, to our grants contact on the call. And just a flag, if we don't get to your question or if we don't answer it comprehensively, please do reach out to one of the emails that we've shared, and we will always do our best to confer with you offline. So I think with that, we can go ahead and get started. We have a number of questions, and I'll do my best to sort through them on the fly and so that we can present a sort of comprehensive overview today. So I think the first question we can start with, it is one on eligibility. And the question is, if you have another grant with another organization, this question lists the NSF or EPA as an example, can you still apply for this grant?
Yes, yes. So, and even if you're like, we had a previous RFA with this program, so even if you were a co-PI on another RFA through us, you can still apply. So, and we are allowing multiple institutions to apply, or multiple applicants from the same institution to apply. We do ask, I think at the full application stage, we do ask for your current and pending research support. So we would like to know, who else is funding you. Typically we also want this to be a new research project, so we're not just funding something to continue on that's already been funded. But yeah, no limitations on who can apply based on your existing support.
Great. And related to that, we have a question about the person applying, and the question is, can a postdoc apply or only a principal investigator?
No, a postdoc can certainly apply. Allison, I'll let you add. Oh, you
Yeah,
okay?
that's
Yeah. No. I mean, we also do like to see, collaborative teams. So I would suggest that you partner up with other researchers to apply together, just to make sure the expertise is well-rounded and represents the research project. But if you are a researcher, such as a postdoc, you are welcome to apply.
great. And you made a point there on collaboration, which leads into this next question. The person asks, is a consortium of organizations eligible to apply? So, for example, research could be done simultaneously in different countries and different soil types. So, could you speak to the what that might look like if a consortium of organizations wanted to apply to this opportunity?
Yes, absolutely. So when you apply, and I'll let Rachel elaborate on this if she has more information, but you have to have one principal investigator kind of listed, but you can certainly be part of a research group and apply. For our last RFA, we actually really encouraged that. For this one, because the funding is a bit lower, we didn't require, multiple locations, but that would be great. We would love to expand the impact of the work.
Great. A couple more questions on eligibility. This one asks, can you be an advisor? So can the applicant, the PI, be an advisor with one company and an employee with another company and apply to two different companies? Um, I don't know if that's enough information for us to answer or if we wanted to ask the person for a little more detail.
I'm I interpreted that as one person applying for one person's submitting multiple proposals, maybe through different entities. Um,
Sure.
yeah, we don't limit how many proposals one PI can submit.
Okay. And if we didn't answer that question, go ahead and write us offline or separately, and we'll do our best to. One more question on this theme, and the question is, if comparing commercial fertilizers with biochar or new fertilizers, is that something that would be in scope for this RFA?
Yeah, so we want the focus of the project to be on the three categories that we listed in the RFA. So enzyme inhibitors, controlled and slow release, and biofertilizers. You can include other things. So if you wanted to include also biochar, but it shouldn't be the focus. So we really want the focus to be on those three categories. Same
Great.
goes
And
for like manure. You can have manure in the systems, especially if it's in an area where a lot of manure is applied, but it shouldn't be the focus.
okay. And just a reminder, we've put the link in the chat a couple of times, but the EFC in this specific RFA does have its own dedicated webpage on our website. So don't worry about writing all of this information down. Everything that we're trying to relay should be listed there. And also, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available publicly on the website as well. So we're diving now a little bit into scope. And on the subject of the topic areas, we have a question about the ranking. So this person wants to know, does the ranking of the topic areas reflect the EFC's priority list? For example, will stacking get priority over impact on microbial populations? So I think the question is, are the topics listed weighted in any way?
No, no, they're not weighted. And you can have more than one topic, if you're looking at impact on efficiency and environmental impacts, and then you're also looking at carryover effects, but yeah, no weighted impact. Like you can have a product solely focus on the microbial communities, and that won't be penalized or anything.
Great.
We want the scientists to come up with creative questions in those topic areas. So it's really up to you all.
Okay. And we have a few questions that are specific to, again, on scope to the crops and the systems that we're calling out of importance in this RFA. One question is about silage. So they say it's not inherently a specialty crop, but is silage included as an acceptable crop in scope, or do you want to focus on human consumption crops?
That's a good question. I believe with the last one, we included corn silage as it's corn. It's just a different way of harvesting it and processing it. So if it's corn silage, that would be in scope. And the
And
other
that,
row crops too, as long as it's a row crop.
okay, that might answer this next question, which is about sweet corn. So they want to know, the sweet corn count, or are you just focused on field corn?
That's a good question. I say it would count as long as you're rotating it with other row crops and you're treating it like a row crop.
Great.
I
And
understand the management might be a little different, but that's okay.
someone asked, so can only research on corn be funded? So back to the crops and scope. They are working on soybean and want to know if that could be included in their proposal to this RFA.
Yes, so it shouldn't be only soy. So if it's soy rotated with corn, that would be in scope. Yeah, soy is we have United Soybean Board on the membership, so they're particularly interested in soy rotations with corn.
And a question on the specialty crops. Are there any specialty crops, of course, taking into account the specifications that you outlined earlier and that are in the RFA as well, on which crops are in scope, but are there any specialty crops that will not be considered and are not supported in this call?
We are not looking at specialty crops in this call. That would be out of scope.
Okay. Um, Let me work through some, see if we have any more questions on the crops themselves. So one question on intercropping, which was mentioned, can perennial grass systems, so tall fescue, for example, um, do they fall into specialty crop groups or can they be considered as an intercrop?
That's a good question. I say if it's a corn system, and you wanted to include something like that in it, that would be okay. It just has to, the focus has to be on corn.
Great. And we're having a few questions about how these scopes have been determined. So why are these the crops in focus? Why are these the geographies in focus? Could you speak a little bit to how these priorities came to be with the EFC?
Yeah, so all the priorities have been developed in collaboration with our membership. So, it's a collaboration of scientists who have kind of provided input on where the biggest impact we could have with this work, as well as the priorities of our members. And for this in particular, we are building off of our last RFA a little bit. And we haven't announced the projects that we funded through that last RFA. That will be happening hopefully very soon. But we're trying to expand on the geographies. We are focusing on the corn systems again, just because corn systems require a lot of fertilizer. So the membership kind of saw that as biggest bang for our buck and trying to mitigate some of the environmental impacts of fertilizer use in those systems. So yeah, building on the last RFA, trying to fill in some research gaps that we didn't get through the last RFA, and then, biggest bang for our buck. And then the topic areas were really just of most interest to the membership.
Thank you. I have a few more questions exploring the geographic focus, the location of the proposed research. One question asks if projects can be binational. So if there was a project between the two areas that you mentioned, maybe the US and Western Central America, somewhere in that region, would that be a welcomed partnership in the proposal?
Oh yeah, no, there's no limitations on how many partner locations can be included in a proposal. Again, the funding isn't huge, so we also understand the limitations and multiple locations collaborating together. I do want to say that, if you have a collaboration between, let's say, a country in South America and then a location in the Eastern US, which is not a target area, that wouldn't necessarily disqualify you, but the focus should not be in an area outside of our targeted locations.
In addition to the named locations, can you speak to the system that you mentioned, which would be dry irrigated systems, and how that might also be referenced in an application? One person asks, would any applications from the continent of Africa be considered?
Yeah, as long as they're arid and irrigated. So as long as that can be justified, that would be in scope.
Great. We have a question. Is this research also going to be supported in Canada? And yes, that is included in the geographies
Yeah,
in scope.
Western North America. So the western parts of Canada would be included.
Great. And that might answer this next question, which is the East Coast of the USA. going to be included in this call? For example, the Delmarva Peninsula.
No, so we're focusing specifically on the Western North America, so the Western US.
Okay. I have a specific question again on mixing and matching of irrigated areas, and I'll just read their question because they provided a specific case. Could Ohio work, not arid and not big on irrigation, with irrigated regions of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, some collaboration like that? Would it qualify under this call?
Yeah, so all the locations mentioned, I can actually share this. And we can include this in on the website as well. But so the Dakotas and Ohio are considered the north central region of the U.S. Um, so we're really interested in Western U.S. So that's anything Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, and west of that, and that would include Hawaii and Alaska as well.
Right. And that answers one question we had, which is what is included in the Western USA. And I think what we specify as that region is included in the RFA. Is that correct?
I don't have states listed out, but I can include that, and I can ask our communications team to include that information on the
Okay.
website.
Staying in this theme of irrigation and study sites, one question asks, it was mentioned that study sites outside South America, Canada, Western North America should be arid areas with irrigation. Does the source of irrigation matter at all? For example, would canal irrigation be sufficient?
Interesting. No, I don't, we're not specific to the type of irrigation. The reason why we're focusing on irrigation is because some of these products are limited, can be limited by water, and our water is often very important for the incorporation of the nutrients and release of the nutrients and things. So, that can be an important factor with the management of these products. So that's why we're specifically looking at irrigated systems in those arid locations.
Okay. We've spent some time on locations, the justification of the locations, and we have a few questions on some of the proposal specifics in terms of budget. Maybe Rachel can hop in here, or we'll see if we can answer them sufficiently here. So the first question that we have on budget is about match. And so the person asking is correct that match is optional for this opportunity. But if you do happen to bring match, can that match be all in kind or must 50% still be cash? And they're referencing our match policy, which is on our website, which states that 50% of all match must be cash.
So typically, yes, 50% still has to be cash, but when it's optional, yeah, 100% of it can be in kind if that's what you're looking to do.
Great, thank you. Another question on match. Can matching funds be from one of the EFC members themselves as part of a proposal?
Yeah, sure. No, we don't restrict where they can come from. Match cannot be from a US government source. So it can't be from USDA, for example, but otherwise it can be from anywhere. Yeah, if a member is wanting to put more money towards a project, we would certainly welcome that.
Right, and Sarah's referencing forest policy that we cannot match US federal funding, seeing as we are funded by Congress ourselves. On the budget, the question is, do applications need a detailed budget or simply the amount requested in the matching fund? So I think applicants can look at the pre-application components and the RFA there, and then maybe Sarah or Rachel, you can speak to when more detail would be requested of applicants on their budget.
So, yeah, like Olivia said, you can find all the application components split up between the pre-application and the full application in the RFA document. For the pre-application, just a general overview of how much you're requesting, any match that you might be bringing. That's what's requested for the pre-application. Once we get to the full application, you'll be required to submit a full budget, and you can find our budget template on the website.
Thank you. And if there's any document or material that you need to submit your application, you can't find it, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to locate that for you. Another question on match and on the members of the EFC. Can the matching funds be from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, for example?
Yes.
Great. Um, let's see if we have any other budget questions we can answer. There's one more question asking of examples of budget templates. Any template or document that we will be asking as part of this opportunity, it will be linked and referenced and available in the application portal itself. Okay. I see that we have a raised hand, and I believe we have the functionality to allow this person to ask their question off mute if they would like. Um, so, Eti, I have brought you up to the screen, asked you to unmute if you would like to ask your question. And I see you came off mute, but we can't hear you if you are talking. Okay. Maybe an accident, maybe technical issues. If you want to ask your question in the Q&A box, please go ahead and do that, or just go ahead and send us an email. Okay. All right. We have about 20 minutes left, and we have a few more questions, and we have one more raised hand. So, Peter, you should be able to ask your question if you want to come off mute.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. So my question is, well, I live in Ghana and I'm interested in applying. So the first question is, well, will I be qualified to apply? And then do I need maybe a partner from any of the eligible geographical settings stated to be eligible, or do I need to do irrigation system in my project? Yeah, so
Yeah,
basically,
so if you're outside of one of the locations that we specified, it should be arid systems with irrigation. That should really be the focus of the field trials.
oh, okay. So it means I have to include irrigation component in the field trial, right?
The field trials need to be conducted in arid locations and using irrigation. That's the main criteria. So if you are not in one of those systems, if that's not your environment, you are still eligible to apply, but the field trials must occur in those locations and environments. So yes, if probably from Ghana, you would most likely need to collaborate with an institution in an arid and irrigated location to do the trials in that environment. So that's the consideration.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Hmm.
Peter,
Yes.
we have one more raised hand that I see, Rahim. So you should be able to come off mute now.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Rahim Rahimi. I'm a faculty at Purdue University. So we have developed a sensor technology that allows monitoring soil conditions. I know the call was about like seeds and cover crop to better manage fertilizers. So the idea is, can we actually use like sensors to better manage fields and minimize basic fertilizers at sections that are not needed? Is that within the scope or not?
So in the list of research areas we're not supporting includes crop diagnostic technologies as well as evaluating novel measurement techniques. So you can certainly use that measurement technique in a project, but the measurement technique itself should not be the focus of the project.
Okay. No, but the idea is, can we actually use that technology that we've developed and in the field and see if it can actually help in terms of better management of fertilizers? So not
So
on developing the technology, but actually using the technology, can it actually be used to better manage basically fertilizers? Is that within the scope, or do you think it's still wrong? It's not.
So you'll be evaluating the technology to see how it works.
Yes.
Yeah,
How
so
was
that
it
is not in
implemented?
scope.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Okay. Makes
You
sense.
can use the technology to answer one of the questions that is in scope, but the evaluation of the technology itself is not what we're looking for.
I see. Makes sense.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so we have a few questions that I want to get through in the chat quickly, and they're mostly on the specs of the proposed research itself. So let's start high level with one more question on irrigation and then dig into some specifics of EEFs. So quickly, would management of special fertilizers within a saline irrigation water system be of interest or in scope?
Yeah, so we don't have requirements to that level of detail. So, arid irrigation, that's kind of the broader scope, but then this nitty-gritty details below that is really up to the researcher and will be evaluated in your proposal. So we don't have, so the overall requirements we have are kind of the basic level that you need to qualify, and then below that, it really depends on the project.
Okay, and maybe this question is a nitty-gritty one, but we'll ask the panel anyways. There's a request to be a little more specific on the impact of EEFs, enhanced efficiency fertilizers, on their use on soil microbial communities and function. Are we looking for in this call a general analysis, microbial and enzyme activities, or does it have to dive into the molecular indicators, for example?
So this I would completely leave up to the microbiologists to propose and decide. I am not a soil microbiologist, so we are interested in how it's impacting the microbial community, and how you measure that is really up to the scientists. So as long as you justify and how you do the work and what you're looking for and it makes sense in the scope of the project, it's up to the microbiologist to decide. Yeah.
One question on the specifications of the treatments and maybe the requirements outlined and field trial guidelines. Question is about the buffer between treatments. They're asking, is the 1 meter buffer between treatments necessary?
Let me just look at the table. So that is recommended. So we recommend a 1 meter minimum buffer, but it is recommended. So in any of the recommended categories, if you can justify what you're doing and it makes sense. So if you don't have any buffer and you're expecting movement of the nutrients through the soil, we might be like, oh, like that might impact the results a bit. So again, if anything recommended, as long as you have a justification, it's okay.
Okay. And speaking of equipment and approaches to these parameters and research, there's a question on buying equipment as part of the budget. So can we include buying equipment in the budget, such as no-till drill with a fertilizer box to ban variable rates of fertilizers? So maybe Rachel, you could speak to what can be included in the budget, or Sarah.
Yeah, so you are allowed to purchase equipment using the funds. There's a specific box if there's anything, I believe it's over $5,000. There's a special place for it in our budget template. I would look at definitely the matching guidelines on our website for more specifics regarding what isn't or isn't allowed in terms of equipment. But generally, yes.
Yeah, and I'll just say from a kind of proposal review standpoint, if all of your budget is being used towards buying equipment, we will be suspicious of like why so much of the budget is going towards equipment. We expect some equipment to be purchased certainly with these projects, especially if they're answering specific questions. But the equipment purchase needs to be directly used for the project. It can't just be, general equipment to be used, for anything else. But we look for reasonable budgets. So if you have a small amount of equipment being purchased, that makes sense. If like 75% of your budget is for equipment, that might be maybe too much. So just be reasonable.
Okay. And we have another raised hand from one of our attendees, so you should be allowed to come off mute now and ask your question if you're there.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask, in conditions where, corn is not the major crop in the area where I would like to do the research, and that's actually basically in Ethiopia, would that be allowable also? just to give an example, if sorghum or if wheat is the main crop, are you only focusing on corn?
Wheat can be in rotation with corn, but the focus should be on corn. But crops like wheat can be included. If there's no corn in the system, that will be out of scope. We need to see a focus on corn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a few more questions in the chat and about just under 15 minutes left in our call. So hopefully we'll be able to get to them all today. And Sarah has just dropped a resource in the chat about a link to the templates and where you can find them, which is in the RFA itself in the PDF.
So I think this has been asked a number of times, and just to share it again, yes, this is recorded and will be available on the website. All the links are in the chat and the Q&A to access that. So please do refer to all that information for templates and requirements and so on. So hand it back over, Olivia, but I think you're the only one who can post to all attendees.
Thank you for catching. So I will go ahead and project over Sarah's message there.
Thank you. And Rachel, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the budget template is not required at the pre-application stage. So I don't think there's actually any templates that are required at the pre-application stage.
No.
But again, reference the RFA. It'll show you which specific things you need to submit. Most of the templates will be required at the full application stage, which you don't have to worry about unless you're specifically invited. So don't worry about it right now.
And there's one question early on that I wanted to sort of reference here about what the success rate of winning from FAR is, and that varies quite a lot from different programs. This is a two-stage opportunity. So this is where we're talking about the pre-application. So that doesn't require all the detailed templates, but you do need to go into the system, create an account, and fill out the forms there. The executive committee will be taking those pre-applications and evaluating them based on what they have written in the RFA. So that's why we're emphasizing so much of these things. And we're hearing some great ideas from you all that sound wonderful, but that are not in scope for this opportunity. So unfortunately, even if they're great ideas, if they're not in scope, the executive committee will not move them on to a full application invitation. So please consider that before you spend the time to write a pre-application. Is it really in scope? In the last opportunity for EFC, we did receive over 100 pre-applications. I believe we ended up inviting 40 or so of those to submit a full application, and we ended up making 9 awards from that. This one might be similar. So the chance of success, if you get to the full application stage and are invited to write a full application, I would say it's roughly 1 in 4, 1 in 5. That we would end up funding. But again, it's difficult to say until we see the response and actually issue those invitations. I think we do specify in the RFA how much funding is available, and then the cap of funding for each individual project is $500,000 for this particular opportunity. I hope that helps a little bit.
That's great.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, that clarification and guidance. We have a raised hand, so I will bring you up to the stage if you would like to ask your question.
Good morning to you all.
Morning.
Yeah, so I'm following from Ghana.
Thank you for being here. Would you like to ask a question?
And I want to know the effect of seasonal variation.
Okay. Looks like your connection might be a little
Yes,
spotty.
so I want to know nitrogen and phosphorus losses as well as part of the project.
Yes, phosphorus losses would definitely be of interest. Nitrogen or phosphorus are in scope.
Okay. In both irrigated and non-irrigated areas.
So irrigated and non-irrigated in South America, Central America, or Western North America. If it's not in one of those 3 regions, it should be arid and irrigated.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. I have a few more specific questions on proposal design, and then I think I'll reserve the last few minutes just to close out, maybe give a brief overview of next steps and the timeline. That sounds okay. I have a specific question about preference for proposals. Is a multi-location project preferable, or would a 3-year project be more preferable? And are we waiting proposals like that?
Not necessarily. We want to see at least so the time period we're interested in is 2 to 3 years. So single year trials we aren't as interested in because, as you all know, weather can change year to year, and that can really be important to capture in these research studies. So 2 to 3 years. I wouldn't say more locations versus time is going to be compared. It really just depends on the proposal and whether it's in scope and is really strong. So.
And let's see, we have 2 more questions I think we can get to today. So this question is about involving farmers or producers in the field trials. So is the possibility of involving farmers, small or medium scale, and the implementation of the field trials being considered here? And another question on practices in scope, can practices such as cover crops or mulching be evaluated as part of this proposal?
For the second one, yes, definitely. Cover crops are definitely of interest. Mulching, again, those can be included as management practices in addition to the fertilizer products we're interested in. And I'm glad someone asked about the on-farm component. So to comply with the field trial guidelines, it has to be replicated plot studies. So most of the time, those are done on research farms. You can do those on producer fields, but it must be replicated plot studies with, sufficient equipment to be able to do that kind of work in that scale. So, you can certainly do that I've done that on farmer fields in my work, so it's definitely possible. Not off, farmer on-farm studies typically are done a bit differently, but again, as long as you could comply with those field trial guidelines and the experimental design um, you know, it's possible to do it with farmers.
Thank you. We have 2 questions on definition. So I think maybe the last time we'll address this during the Q&A. It's a question about arid and if semi-arid counts or how you are defining arid systems.
We're looking for dry regions with irrigation. So if you can justify that in your proposal, it will be considered. So, I know there's a lot of gray area there. But again, irrigation is really the focus here because again, a lot of these products need to be, incorporated with water. And so like dryland systems without water, a lot of these products might not even work in those systems. So again, irrigation is really the focus. If it's arid, semi-arid, as long as you justify it, and the products make sense in those systems.
Thanks for that insight. Second question on definition is commercially available and what that means in this case. So the question is, what does that indicate? Does that mean that the fertilizer in question must be EPA approved, mass produced, or if the product is produced and available and just needs to be tested in field, would that also be in scope?
Yeah, so the idea here is it has to be available to farmers to purchase. So farmers should be able to go to their supplier and get it and use it on their fields. So depending on the country, that means yes, it should be approved for use in that country. It should be readily available for farmers to use today. We want farmers to have better guidance for the tools that are available to them. So we're not looking at products that are under development, pre-commercialization, things like that. We want answers for farmers about products that are on the market, ready to be purchased and approved for use in that location.
Great. And I think we have one more question that we can answer today, and this might lead us into the discussion of next steps. So the question is, as part of this concept, as part of this RFA, will we be fostering initial concepts, so these pre-applications, into clusters and preparing them for full proposal application, or what can applicants expect after they submit their pre-proposal?
Yeah, so I mean the selection process, as Allison said, is really for this pre-application stage. We're mostly looking to see is it in scope, and the executive committee will be voting to say yes, I'm interested in moving this forward or not. So, but that will be based on the RFA terms. So, what's in scope in the RFA will indicate whether a proposal will move forward. And if we see, it's written well, like we understand what you're doing, it follows, what we're looking for. So that's really the step for this first phase. Allison, I
Okay.
don't know if you have anything to add to
Yeah,
that.
no, I think that's exactly right. So this is not a case where we're trying to bring people together and form larger projects or programs. So it's really a matter of a yes or no on your specific idea or project, whether we move that forward to a full application phase. But that is something that you would lead then on your own based on your pre-application. And I think we're seeing this again. Yes, the presentation is recorded, will be available on the website as soon as we get it processed. Um, and what are the other next steps?
Great. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and close out the Q&A portion of this webinar. Please check the Q&A box. Maybe we wrote an answer to your question. Check the recording if we addressed it on the panel. Please check the RFA if you have any questions about scope, location, any details about what we're looking for in this proposal. And of course, reach out to us if you have any questions. But thank you for your engagement today in this part of the webinar, and I will go ahead and pass it back to you, Sarah, to close us out.
No, thank you, Olivia. That's perfect. Again, you can reach out to any of the contacts information shared today. Our contact information is also on the RFA website and in the RFA PDF. Want to hit home again, that RFA PDF really has everything you need to know. If you have a clarification question, feel free to reach out to us. And March 18th is the deadline, so we have about a month. Um, Best of luck, and we're really excited to see your proposals come through. Allison, do you have anything last
Yep.
to add? No?
Thank you all. It's
Rachel?
great to see so much interest in this program, and we really look forward to seeing the proposals come in. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much.